Well, the Daily Wire, my publication, they do an excellent job covering everything happening down at the border. Chrissy Clark is a staff reporter at Daily Wire. She writes on issues of higher education. Her work is also featured in the Washington Free Beacon, Federalist, and Daily Signal. And she has now cut a video on the border crisis. She went down to the border to check it out. Chrissy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So why don't you tell us about what you saw down on the border? Obviously, the Biden administration claims they've got this thing under control. They say that it is not a crisis, it is a challenge. But now Joe Biden is saying, actually, it's not even a challenge. Apparently, he's now saying in national interviews that this thing is beginning to wane, that we are now beginning to control this thing. What is the evidence of that?
There is no evidence that this is waning. In fact, these migrant detention centers are turning into an even bigger crisis right now. I've talked to Border Patrol agents that are part of the Border Patrol Union down there regularly, and they tell me that this isn't getting better. In fact, they've been put into facilities at this point, and they just see more and more people. There are pods that are meant for 33 people, where they're squishing 250 to 300 people into a pod meant for 33 people. And the Biden administration, because of the PR disaster of 2014, they've tried to get rid of these chain link fence by putting in plastic sheets. Imagine trying to clean down a plastic sheet. That's like a cover that you have in your bathtub. I don't know. It's absolutely disgusting. It's less sanitary for these migrants. And it's kind of disturbing that an administration would do what looks best for it instead of what's best for the health and safety of children.
So what exactly has the Biden administration changed in terms of policy that has facilitated this giant border rush? Because obviously there were migrants who were showing up at the southern border throughout the Trump administration, but it really started to exponentially increase directly after Joe Biden's election.
Yeah, Border Patrol agents told us that it's two-pronged. Partially, it's the rhetoric. Migrants have a completely different understanding of our policy than what even Joe Biden thinks that he's saying. Migrants heard when Joe Biden said that we're going to have a moratorium on deportations. They just think that they can come here. If they get here in the first 100 days, they're here to stay. They're not going to be deported. They don't have to go through the asylum claim process. They're just going to get in here for free. So that's what they've interpreted it as. That's obviously wrong, but that's how they hear it. And they've seen their friends or other family members be successful at it. And so that's exactly what they think they can do. And then the second prong is finishing the border wall. Now, migrants know that most of them come there and they turn themselves in, but it's the violent criminals that don't want to be apprehended by Border Patrol that know that now is the time to do it while we have a liberal administration that doesn't want to finish the border wall, where it's really easy for them to traverse into the country.
So, Chrissy, one of the things that Joe Biden just said in an interview over the last 24 hours, he was asked specifically about his pledge that he'd be reuniting these children with their families. And the interviewer said, we have no evidence that a single child's been reunited with their family. And Biden said, well, I don't know about that, but it could be true. It is astonishing that he continues to get away with all of this. It seems like it's having some impact even on border state Democrats. So Mark Kelly came out after the State of the Union address or fake State of the Union address and said pretty openly, doesn't seem like there's a border plan to me. How's this playing for Democrats in border states?
I mean, it's terrible for them. Obviously, there's no doubt about it. But the really sad thing is that you can't tell whether a child's been reunited with their parents or not because you don't actually know who their parents are. What I saw when I was at the border, I went down to Roma, Texas, and saw these kids being put in rafts coming back and forth across. And Texas State Rangers told the Daily Wire that these kids are just sent over and over again. They see them every other week. They go through the entire process because it's $12,000 to get smuggled in by the cartel. So if a parent can't pay the $12,000 to send their kid across, they'll just send the kid across back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until they've made what they would think to be $12,000 to get the kid across. So you don't actually know if that kid belongs to the parent that they come into a facility with. So no, I don't know how they would possibly think that they're reuniting with a family member when we don't even know who their family member really is.
So is there any path forward out of this, or is this just going to continue at this level ad infinitum? Because it doesn't seem like they're taking any sort of mitigating measures at this point.
No, I mean, Border Patrol agents just say that the best thing that they could do right now to kind of slow the wave and make things more livable for migrants that are in these facilities is to allow deportations and to finish the wall. Because finishing the wall is not just for for the betterment of Border Patrol agents and their safety. It's also very important to keep migrants safe. If you don't want a 12-year-old crossing the border with 20 pounds of drugs strapped to their back because they can't afford to come into the United States, then finish the border wall, because that's the only way you're going to fix it. So those were the two solutions.
I mean, well, what is morale like among the members of Border Patrol? So you say you speak to them all the time. I mean, we've seen that when it comes to policing in the United States, a lot of cops are just laying down their badges and saying, I'm not doing this. They're looking for early retirement. What's the morale like with Border Patrol right now?
A lot of them have been in this situation for so long that no, it's not necessarily a unique crisis to the Biden administration. It's just this massive, massive influx that makes them exhausted. I saw them working double shifts. I could not believe how many hours these people work. It's insane. They're not necessarily in low morale, but they have a lot of what's the word I'm looking? They're just very motivated to showcase this problem. They really want people to know because they want their workload lifted. Not a lot, but they want it lifted back to how it normally is.
And Krissy Clark, staff reporter at the Daily Wire. Go check out the new video she just cut over at Daily Wire on the situation at the border. Krissy, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.